Hello, I'm Colleen Gallagher, CEO at OnWrd UpWrd, and you're listening to the Association Insights podcast powered by OnWrd UpWrd, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Association Insights podcast powered by OnWrd and UpWrd. I'm your host, Colleen Gallagher, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I'm joined by Mark Fernando, Director of Governance and Administration at the American Sociological Association. Mark oversees many of the systems and processes that help keep the association running, from elections and governance to volunteer engagement and leadership development. He also brings a unique background spanning communications, operations, and association leadership, making him the perfect person to talk to about what it really takes to build trust, transparency, and engagement within an association. Mark, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love for you to share a bit more about your role at ASA and what governance and administration actually encompass at an organization like that.
ASA has about 9,000 members, mostly academics, those with PhDs and those working at universities and colleges across the US, Canada, and around the world. And all of our members teach, research, and publish in the area of sociology. Sociology is the study of social life, change, groups, and how people interact within various contexts of these groups. So my role as a Director of Governance and Administration is sort of two parts, different, but equally important, I think. So in terms of administration, which is, I would guess, about 20% of my job, it's non-financial business operations. So the IT infrastructure, onboarding and offboarding employees, business continuity, the privacy policy. Our staff is 100% remote. So we have a virtual office where all of our mail goes in and shipping and, people will say like the boring stuff, but it's like, the foundation of just how the office runs and works. And then so the other 80% of my job is governance. So making sure that all the policies and bylaws of the association are being followed, the nomination process for all of our elected and appointed positions, liaise with several standing committees. A big part of our department's job is managing our component groups. These are, we call them sections and communities. So we have 54 sections. These are sub areas of sociology and 10 communities. And these are groups where people can come together if they have a similar background, either ethnic or racial background or a common workplace background. It allows them to come together that transcend sort of what they research so they can find community and connection. All in all, our department, there's only 2 of us in our department. We coordinate the work or elect and appoint people and work with almost 1,000 volunteers across the association. So it's a lot. We have a lot of direct member contact in our department.
Wow, yeah, that's impressive. I had looked at your website and saw just how many of those sections and committees that you just talked about there were, and was blown away and assumed it was a large team managing that. So 2 of you. Wow, that's the association world, though, right? We wear a lot of hats, we do a lot of things, and
that's right. Me and my colleague always say we're small but mighty.
I love it. Love it. Well, I mean, so you have this large governance structure and you have elected leadership, you have the standing committees, the sections you talked about, you have annual elections, you've got this really engaged member base. What have you learned about building governance systems that's both structured but also responsive to members if you're doing that much member engagement and member facing talking? Yeah,
my family and friends they have a hard time understanding what I do for work. And so I've been working on an analogy for several years now to help me explain what associations are and what I do and in particular, association governance. So I'll try out my analogy, and hopefully your listeners will be able to understand. Imagine associations are a house. The members with similar interests, professions, goals are those who live in the house. And the house is built with a foundation and walls, and these foundation walls are like the association's bylaws. They are the framework that define the house. They define what rooms are in the house. They help the house stand. And just like bylaws and walls, they can be taken down, moved, and expanded. And anyone familiar with construction or ever remodeled their home, walls are harder to move. They take longer to move, but it's still possible to, add a wall, take down a wall, what have you. But also in the house, you have furnishings, you have decor, and you have paint. And these are like the policies of an organization. These policies help define the function and the use of the house's various rooms. Again, furniture and decor can be changed, but no one really changes their furniture very often. But it is changeable, and the furniture can definitely be changed easier than the walls. So just like policies can change. And they change to sort of fit the style and the culture of those who live in the house. And so, the board of an association sets the policies to fit the style and culture of the house. And association professionals, how I explain what my job is as an associational professional, we don't necessarily live in the house. For example, I'm not a sociologist. I've certainly learned a lot about sociology, but I'm not a sociological researcher or teacher. But as an association professional, I understand that my role is sort of the caretaker of the house, or the contractor who can help build and move the walls, and also the decorator who can also replace the furniture and paint a wall. So in terms of the building governance systems, what I've learned through the years is things change. Associations evolve. Good or bad, it's really up to the inhabitants of the house to make the decisions of what the house looks like. And association professionals, and as the caretakers and the contractors and decor, it's our job to manage the house, take care of the house, to propose changes and solutions to make sure that the house stays standing. We use our experience with other homes to suggest to those who live in the house what we know works best. But ultimately, it's the house's inhabitants who make the final decision of what the walls, the rooms, and the decor of the house are. And as association professionals, we're in charge of implementing the decisions of those inhabitants of the house, no matter what paint color or furnishings they may choose.
I love this, Mark. I wish I had had this conversation like 15 years ago. I've worked in associations since I was right out of college, and it's the same thing. It took me years to be able to explain to my family what I did and what associations do. And that's such a good way of portraying it. I feel like they need to give you an Ignite session at ASAE to just be like, let me tell you all how to explain what we do.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure. I hope my family and friends sort of understand through that analogy, but who knows?
So at least they'll have a better idea of it, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, well, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk elections. Most every association deals with some kind of election process. So I would love to know from your side, because these can be really intricate behind the scenes, but what makes running a fair, transparent, and trusted election process really challenging in today's environment?
Yeah, so we do have a very large and challenging election. So we run our association-wide election as well as our 70 component group elections all in the same system, all simultaneously. So we elect about 225 leaders from a slate of 600 candidates over almost 70 separate ballots. So it's an undertaking, to say the least. I think the thing that makes it challenging and easy is technology. Technology has certainly helped through the years. Where I used to work at the National Communication Association, I read some old minutes, and they used to, way back in the day, they had paper ballots. They used to weigh the paper ballots to see who won. I'm like, that's crazy. I guess if it was really close, they would actually have to count them. But
I've never heard of anything like that.
Weighed them just blew my mind.
Fascinating.
But, technology evolves. When something has been working for years, we tend to forget about it, and we take it for granted. And certainly having a third party run your election is very important in terms of transparency. But, you sort of have to keep an eye on the technology to make sure that it's keeping up with what's going on. I can tell you a quick story about our now former election vendor. So we had a long-time vendor who had been running our election for 20 plus years. No issues. They were good. They're easy to deal with. And then 1 week prior to our election opening, I get a call. They say, hi, the staff person who is charged with your election left. So we can't open your election.
Oh, no.
So we'll give you an update. Okay, so the next day, they're like, hey, yeah, we can't open your election at all because there's no one else on staff who can open it because it's being run on Cold Fusion, which is apparently a very old programming language that not many people can know. So we're like, our bylaws state that we need to have the election open by X date. What are we going to do? And they're like, I don't know. So
my inside is hurting for you right now.
Yes. So I literally started contacting every IT person I knew, every web person I knew. I'd be like, help, do you know Cold Fusion? Can you help them run our election? Thankfully, I was able to get in contact with Joanna Pineda from the Matrix Group, who and her team were able to connect with our election vendor. Apparently, our election was set to open automatically, but it was still in test mode with testing everywhere. And we're like, you can't open automatically with that. So Joanna and her team over at Matrix were able to help us put a stop to that. We said, hey, sorry, we're not going to go with you for our election this year. We were able to get together with our website vendor, New Target, and they really saved us, and they built us a brand new, from scratch election system, custom, in the time frame that we needed to get our election up and running in time. So, shout out to Joanna and to New Target for really literally saving us and our election. So yeah, probably one of the most stressful times professionally in my life.
That is one wild story. We love Joanna and Matrix over here at OnWrd and UpWrd. So I'm not at all surprised they were able to jump in and save the day there. But wow, I can imagine the time going through that and the lost sleep that must have been happening there.
Yeah. So again, the moral of the story, don't take your technology for granted. Make sure that all of your systems are, running on the most up-to-date systems. So, something like this doesn't happen to you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one thing that's interesting about ASA is your members operate in this discipline that studies society, inequality, institutions, and social change. And often that can be during politically and culturally charged moments. So I'm curious how you think about governance and organizational leadership when member communities are going to hold really diverse perspectives and expectations.
Let's go back to an association is a house metaphor. At some point, maybe long ago, you had roommates. Maybe you have family living with you in your house. People who live in the same house will inevitably have different opinions. Different viewpoints, and that's okay. That's what's supposed to happen when you promote and champion diversity all under the same roof. There'll also be pressures and voices and influences from outside the house. And there's going to be different opinions on the furnishings and the decor of the house. Not everyone's going to like the same paint color or sofa. There may be even one group who wants to knock down a wall. And that is okay. And that's sort of welcomed. And I believe in association world and in association houses. Again, association professionals, being association professionals, it's our jobs to be the contractors and the architects, but also sometimes the building inspectors to offer the advice to member leaders that knocking down a load-bearing wall might not be the best idea if we want the house to continue standing. And so we need to remind members of the bylaws and the policies of the association are there to provide structure so the house can continue to stand. And remind our members and those living in the house that we have many different rooms in our house for many different voices. And what is important at the end of the day is that we're living together, we're working for the same purpose. And that's what the point of associations is to help people associate, is to help bring people together, to bring diverse viewpoints for discussion, and not have a wild, crazy house party that may bring down the house.
That's great. Too funny. All right. Well, one thing that stands out about ASAA is that I keep saying like ASAE, so ASA. Sorry. It's just like automatic off my tongue here. It's, this emphasis on representation and inclusion, I thought was, really stood out throughout the governance structure, whether it's the committee composition or leadership pathways. How intentional does an organization need to be about creating opportunities for broad participation in leadership?
If an organization is serious about DEI, like ASA is, it has to be intentional. And it has to be balanced. So when we recruit leaders for all 1,000 positions that we have to recruit for, we have to make sure it reflects the diversity and demographic makeup of our members. Diversity not just by race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, but also by institutional type, community college, public institutions, private institutions, PhD granting schools, four-year schools, and also geographic region, East Coast, West Coast, South, international. So we always have to be mindful and careful. One of the balancing acts that we have to also manage is, recruiting for diversity, but not just for diversity's sake. You're recruiting for those varied opinions. You're recruiting for different viewpoints. In academia, where our members work, there are three pillars to promotion and tenure. So there's teaching, research, and service. And that service component can either be service within their university or college, community or whatever, but that service can also be disciplinary service within their disciplinary association will count as well. And this is all unpaid work that gets counted toward their tenure and promotion. But there's a lot of research that shows disparities of who's actually completing this unpaid work. Data shows that female faculty consistently take on more disproportionate share of university. Faculty of color are also tapped to serve more on university and association committees. There's a variety of reasons why this happens. But we just want to make sure that when we do promote diversity and be more inclusive, that they're for the right reasons and that it's balanced, and we're not also overbearing these members who already have a lot on their plate.
Right. Yeah, for sure. One thing in the association world is a lot of us wear a lot of different hats, and I saw your background. You've worked across communications, operations, executive leadership throughout your career. So a lot of different experience. How do you think your comms background has helped shape the way you approach governance, member engagement, and really just organizational transparency?
I think communication is key, really, in everything, in what we do. And, this is what I've said even before I worked at the National Communication Association, where I communicated about communication all the time.
I love it.
In any communication 101 class, the first thing that you'll learn is the communication model. Person A has a message that they want to say, so they pick a channel, talking, email, text message, and that message is received by person B. But what's important is in that model is that feedback. So we need to make sure that person B understood the message. So we need to get that cycle, that back and forth between person A and person B. And associations can sometimes forget the feedback part. So listening is always very key. Listening to the members is always key, and it's always back and forth, and it's always consistent. So we need to evaluate our messaging. We also need to evaluate our channels that we use, that we communicate with members. We tell members something, but they don't seem to understand. We need to find another approach, or perhaps we need to educate them in a different way. As an association professionals, we need to remember that members also have full-time jobs. And I think sometimes as staff, we sort of forget that, a member volunteer has other lives, other priorities, other deadlines. So we can't get mad if they forget about a policy or a procedure. We can't also just tell them one time. We need to constantly and consistently message them. Again, we live the association life on a daily basis. They may not. So we need to be forgiving when they don't remember every single detail. But we also need to tell them and educate them on how associations work as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't think we always think about it that way. It's, we eat, breathe, and sleep this, but it's something they do.
Yes.
So, yep. Yeah, that's a great point. Well, staying on the communications wavelength there, associations now, like a lot of businesses, they're under growing pressure to move quickly, communicate clearly, navigate public member conversations. How do you balance thoughtful governance processes with that need for agility and responsiveness?
You definitely need something set up before you start going into this area. You need guardrails. You need to make sure you have a path. Governance processes in general need to be purposefully designed to ensure careful deliberation. Again, an association brings people together, but not all people are going to share the same viewpoints. And an association just can't simply weigh on whatever it feels like weighing in that particular day. For a lot of reasons, it could put their nonprofit status at risk. It could just be because there's 5 people in the corner who just happen to be the loudest want to say something. So you just need to make sure to, one, listen to members, and also take time for careful deliberation. And it's not something that you want to make up as you go along. So you need those guidelines, you need those procedures. And what associations can do, very similar to what ASA does, it has guidelines. ASA only takes public positions on issues sort of related to public policy where there is a consensus of sociological literature and relate to matters concerning to the well-being of the discipline. So there's if funding on Capitol Hill being considered, that affects university funding or grant funding or research funding. Of course, that's going to affect our members. We're going to have to step up and support that as well, because that's affecting our members directly.
Absolutely. That's a good way to look at it. So for our associations out there that are looking to modernize governance or maybe strengthen member trust, because that member trust is a huge part of being able to succeed as an association, where would you tell leaders to start? What's a good place for them to start?
Listening to members is always important, but it's something that is, I think, overlooked in our busy daily lives as association professionals, where have the next committee meeting or the next annual meeting or something. So we sometimes forget to get the feedback from members. But members know what they know by their own experience. So the systems that they know are the ones that they use on their daily basis in their own workplaces. But that may not be compatible for what is efficient or effective in a nonprofit association organization. So the structures that we put in place need to be efficient for what we need to do as an association. So we have to go back to the communication model, and it has to be that consistent loop of communication and feedback. And again, at the end of the day, we as association professionals, we're the caretakers of the house. So the members are the ones inhabiting the house. So we just need to share our experience on best practices and what we've learned from other associations, but also be, use member feedback and sort of educate them as to what the best practices are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, crystal ball time. So looking ahead, what conversations are you paying the closest attention to right now, when thinking about when it comes to future of associations, governance, and member engagement?
Oh, watching a lot of different things. The one thing, the economy, for sure. Costs are going up, inflation is going up, everything is getting expensive. And, for association members, their membership could be becoming optional. So, or maybe they're not getting their bang for their buck. So association professionals need to make sure that members are getting value for their membership. We're also at ASA, we're also looking at higher education. Since all of our members work in higher ed, fewer people are going to colleges and universities. So that would mean fewer members in the future. So always looking at that. Also, the last thing that I'm paying really close attention to, and I think everyone is AI. It's everywhere. We really need to learn and sort of figure out how to use it as a tool. I'm going back to my house as association is a house metaphor, but AI is a tool that we can use to help maintain our house. But how are we going to use it? And remember, it's something that's in our toolbox that is there, not to replace staff, but is a tool that staff can use to help maintain the house.
Yes.
So yeah, those are the big picture things that sort of keep me up at night.
I'm sure those are some big things right now. We're hearing really similar from really everyone we talk to in this world. It's just those are the focuses, and it's member value, and it's how are we going to do AI the right way. And so, good conversations to be having, and hopefully we'll all figure it out if we keep working at it and don't just hide from it. So, Mark, this has been wonderful and so many good insights and information. Before we let you go, though, we like to wrap up all of our podcasts with a just for fun rapid fire type segment so our audience can get to know you a little better. Our first question, what's one small thing that brings you joy lately?
The weather. Right now, it's that time of year where my allergies aren't kicking my butt, but it's warm enough to be outside and do outdoor activities.
I love that. I'm in the DC area, so it feels like 106 here yesterday. So it's a little crazy, but I like the heat, so it doesn't bother me. All right, what are you currently obsessed with? Be it a book, a show, hobby, idea? What's the latest obsession?
Probably this idea that I got from our friend Joanne Pineda is this idea of breaking out, getting out of my rut, getting out of my routine, trying new things. It's sort of one of the reasons why I sort of like, oh, let's do a podcast. Like I've never done this before. Let's give it a try.
That's awesome. I love trying new things. So that's so cool to hear. What's your ideal comfort food?
Soup. It could be 100 degrees outside. I don't care. I'll have a hot bowl of soup.
That's so funny. That's how my husband is. And he also always complains about being hot. And I'm like, why are you eating that on a summer day? That's great. Okay. What's the travel moment that still makes you smile when you think about it?
Amsterdam, for two reasons. One, it was the very first international trip that I took with my then girlfriend and now wife of 10 years. And two, I won the trip being a contestant on The Price is Right.
What? You're bearing the lead here. That's the most amazing thing ever.
Yes. Yeah, the show aired like 13 years ago, and it's a funny story. So I had a friend who lived out in California. Her husband was in the military and was deployed, so all of our friends here on the East Coast took turns to go out to visit her. And so I went out, and she's like, oh, what do you want to do? Want to go to Disneyland? Want Universal Studios? Want to go to the beach? I'm like, no. I got us tickets to be contestants on The Price is Right.
I spent so many hours as a kid watching that at my grandma's. And now I laugh because my dentist, which I was just at this week, I don't know how, but they in the waiting room have Bob Barker Price is Right episodes playing every time I go. I'm like, where did you find these? Like,
Wow.
This is old school.
Yeah, definitely. But it was a good time. I enjoyed my time being a contestant and Yeah,
That is
Amsterdam.
very cool.
Amsterdam is something that always brings a smile to my face.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of cool things today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. The Association Insights podcast, powered by OnWrd and UpWrd, is a production of OnWrd and UpWrd Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of our newsletter, a weekly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association? Or do you have some words of wisdom from the trenches of association life? Well, we want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupwrd.com. That's info@onwrdupwrd.com. Be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association inspiration and insights. Thanks for tuning in.